Watch Dr. Drew's new show at 9 on HLN. Weeknights on HLN.
You know, what do we say about addicts when they're talking?
Oh, God, they're always lying. You know, and the thing is that, you know, the disease of drugs and alcoholism is it will rob you of your truth, you know, and it'll rob you of your mind and eventually take your life. And there's this line that we cross when we're in our disease that you start believing the lie, and that's where it gets really scary.
Well, it's interesting you would say that, because that's why I was speculating that Casey Anthony might be an addict, because for an addict, the kinds of lies she was telling seem customary. Right, Janice?
Well, I don't know. I never murdered my child, nor did I lie about murder with my children.
Okay, but
clearly my children have seen me act out when I lied.
Right, and tell us about your lying. Was it all the time? Could you tell when you were lying? Did you even know when you were
Drew,
lying?
I was born different, and that turned me into an alcoholic drug addict. I was born with a mental illness, and this mental illness made me always feel different, which drove me to the epitome of the fashion industry. But I had to do a lot of two-stepping to get there, and in order to do that, you know, yeah, I came from a house where I had to lie because my dad was a pedophile.
Ooh, okay, there's that too. That's
Yes.
another. So you lied to survive,
Yes,
and then
I
your
did.
disease also had you supporting lying. Yes.
It had
Both.
to be done because if I spoke, he would have beaten up my family. He physically abused me on a daily basis.
Okay, so there's two roads to lying, and many people with addiction, just for my viewers, have a history of trauma of various types. So we hear that all the time. Michelle, you're shaking your head. Yes,
Absolutely. I was going to say that's what happens in families. I mean, people don't become addicted to things because they've lived in a happy, fulfilling, attuned home. They are disconnected, lied to. Other things are happening that they're trying to cover up,
and
it's
the
deception.
children are trying to survive. Let
Exactly.
me go to this little thing first. Your addicts, especially musicians, we all know, like Amy Winehouse, which is just a sad story, often surrounded by people who enable them and get them back to work prematurely. Here's what Johnny Colt recently told CNN News about Amy and her attempt at treatment. Watch this.
Rehab is one thing, but it takes years to get that attitude adjustment. And for her to be walking back on stage that quickly after her 4th rehab attempt just makes a testament to the people around her. It's difficult because when you're a popular singer who makes money, you're basically a racehorse. And that's how you're treated by the people around you.
Johnny, I completely agree with what you were explaining there. I'm not sure people understand that. They somehow think that the people around them are enabling their using. It's a little more pernicious than that, isn't it? The enabling is actually about returning them to work so they can't ever get recovery.
Well, one of the things about dealing with an artist is that their art is essentially, if they're successful, it's kind of lightning in a bottle. There is no formula for it. So once it happens with a young artist, everyone that's making money off of that artist wants to continue it as long as they can. And as we know throughout entertainment history, eventually that lightning in a bottle wears out. So it's in their best interest to keep you working no matter what state you're in. And if you decide to participate in drug use and not be at your best, it's frankly even better for the people who handle you because you're easier to manipulate.
The same thing happened with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
The same thing happened with Amy, and she tried to contact me a few weeks before because she knew that I'd been in the limelight and I had gotten sober. I blame the manager. I blame her handlers. I blame you. How dare you set this poor girl back after she had clearly
Made an attempt.
Made an attempt. She was in recovery. She was in a rehab, and she was clean. The minute she went out, she took the same amount of drugs that she had taken before she entered rehab.
Michelle?
The problem is that what happens in these situations, and we see this with celebrities and clients that I have that have power and money, is that their bottom is constantly lowered by the people around them because of power, money, and access. And then death becomes the bottom.
Well, I can't tell you. Well, Steven Tyler told me the other day, he said, my lucky friends hit bottom. My unlucky ones are the ones that don't.
I mean, we're suffering from a spiritual malady here, you know.
That's
I
exactly
mean, this
it.
disease wants you dead. It doesn't care who you are, you know. And you know, we are trauma survivors in some way, you know, even through our adulthood. And one of the biggest gifts that I was able to do was learn to tell the truth in recovery.
In recovery, there's this 12-step program. I'm on the 9th step. I lied recently to an ex. I didn't have the courage to tell him, you know, that I had sex with the fireman/paramedic. It was really tough.
Just couldn't tell the
I
truth.
just didn't have the courage. I didn't have the courage. And I had to tell him today how sorry I was that I lied and cheated.
Okay, but
busted.
But Johnny, I hear you laughing, but it's funny because it's so true. Well, no, because it's so true that the recovery is a is a daily process. I talked to our friend Tom Sizemore a couple of days ago. He knows everybody here. And he was saying how people don't understand that people talk about beating addiction. Every day it remains the hardest thing in his life. Is it not so, Johnny? And that includes being rigorously honest.
Honest.
Absolutely. Tom Sizemore I was a huge fan before, and watching his recovery has been a boost to my own recovery, and I'm really honored to see the place he's arrived. Yes, you have to build yourself back up from the ground, and it's a scary thing. When I left my band, I had to start over from scratch, and that's a scary place to go.